I don't love you anymore. You are just a poor plantain seller.
Listen, come closer. Let me tell you a story about a plantain seller who sponsored her man through university and how he dumped her for a rich lady. Fiona stood in the middle of Joseph's new house, her hands shaking, her eyes red from crying. She could not believe what she was seeing. The man she had loved for 5 years, the man she had sold plantains for under the hot sun, the man she had given everything to, was now standing in front of her with another woman. And not just any woman. A woman wearing expensive clothes, gold jewelry, and perfume that filled the whole room. The woman's name was Clara, and she was holding Joseph's hand like Fiona never existed. "Joseph, please," Fiona begged, her voice breaking. "Please don't do this to me. After everything I did for you, after everything we went through together." Her knees hit the floor. She didn't care anymore. She was ready to beg. She was ready to crawl if it meant keeping the man she loved. But Joseph only looked down at her with cold eyes. Eyes that used to be warm. Eyes that used to love her. Now, they were empty. He reached into his pocket, pulled out some money, and threw it at her feet like she was a beggar on the street. "Take this and leave," Joseph said with a voice so hard it felt like a slap. "You were useful when I had nothing, Fiona. But I'm a different man now. I have money. I have class. I have a future. And you're just a plantain seller." Clara laughed. It was a soft, mocking laugh that cut deeper than any knife. Fiona's heart shattered into a million pieces. The money scattered on the floor around her knees, but she didn't touch it. She just stared at Joseph, hoping, praying, that this was a bad dream. But it wasn't a dream. It was real. The man she had loved, the man she had suffered for, had just thrown her away like garbage. Fiona stood up slowly, her legs shaking, her chest tight with pain. She looked at Joseph one last time, then at Clara, and then she walked out of that house. She didn't take the money. She didn't say another word. But deep inside her broken heart, something whispered softly, "Karma is watching." And karma never forgets. If you love emotional stories that teach real-life lessons, please subscribe now and turn on the notification bell. This story will touch your heart. 5 years ago, Fiona was not rich, but she was happy. She lived in a small village with her grandmother, who was too old to walk. So every morning, Fiona would wake up before the sun, balance a big tray of plantains on her head, and walk to the market to sell them. Her feet hurt. Her back ached. But she never complained. She knew her grandmother needed her. She knew this was her life. And she had accepted it. Some days were harder than others. Some days the sun was so hot she felt like she would faint. Some days people were rude and refused to buy from her. But Fiona kept going, day after day, because giving up was not an option. One day, while she was walking through the busy market, she bumped into a young man. Her tray shook, and some plantains almost fell to the ground. "Oh, I'm so sorry," the young man said quickly, grabbing the tray to steady it. Fiona looked up, and her breath caught in her throat. He was tall, with kind eyes and a gentle smile. His clothes were old and torn at the edges, but he carried himself with dignity. "It's okay," Fiona said shyly, her heart beating fast. "Thank you for catching it." The young man looked at her with genuine concern, making sure she was all right and that nothing was damaged. The young man smiled. "My name is Joseph," he said. "I'm new here. I just moved to this village to stay with my uncle while I look for work." Fiona nodded. She didn't know why, but something about him made her feel safe. "My name is Fiona," she replied softly. They talked for a few minutes, and then Fiona continued to the market. But she couldn't stop thinking about him. His voice. His smile. The way he had helped her without asking for anything in return. That night, she found herself replaying their brief meeting over and over in her mind. The next day, Joseph was waiting for her at the same spot. "I thought maybe I could help you carry your tray to the market," he said with a shy grin. Fiona's heart melted. No one had ever offered to help her before. From that day on, Joseph walked with her every morning. He helped her sell plantains. He made her laugh. He made her feel like she mattered. He would tell her stories about his childhood, his dreams, and his fears. And slowly, without even realizing it, Fiona began to fall in love. She started to look forward to their morning walks, to his warm smile, and to the way he made even the hardest days feel a little bit easier. Weeks turned into months, and Fiona and Joseph became inseparable. Every morning, he would meet her before sunrise, and together they would walk to the market. He didn't have much money, but he always found small ways to make her smile. Sometimes he would buy her a sweet banana from the fruit seller. Sometimes he would tell her funny stories about his childhood. And sometimes, he would just hold her hand and tell her she was beautiful. Fiona had never felt so special, so seen, so valued by anyone in her entire life. Fiona had never felt this way before. She had never felt loved. She had never felt important. But with Joseph, everything was different. He saw her, not as a poor plantain seller, but as a woman with dreams, with a heart, with worth. One evening, as they sat under a big tree near the river, Joseph turned to her and said, "Fiona, I don't have anything right now. I don't have money. I don't have a house. But I promise you, one day, I will make something of myself. And when I do, I will give you the world." His eyes were sincere, full of hope and determination. Fiona's eyes filled with tears. Not sad tears, happy tears. "I don't need the world, Joseph," she whispered. "I just need you." Joseph pulled her close and kissed her forehead. In that moment, Fiona felt like the richest woman alive. She didn't care that she was poor. She didn't care that her clothes were old. Because she had love. She had Joseph. And that was enough. The river flowed gently beside them, and the stars began to appear in the darkening sky. Everything felt perfect. But love is not always enough. Because while Fiona's heart was full, Joseph's mind was already making plans. He wanted more. He wanted to go to school. He wanted to be educated. He wanted to rise above poverty. And Fiona, without hesitation, decided she would help him. Even if it meant she had to suffer. Even if it meant she had to give up everything. Because that's what love does. It sacrifices. She believed that helping Joseph succeed would be the greatest thing she could ever do with her life. Joseph had a dream. A big, beautiful dream. And every time he talked about it, his eyes would light up like stars. "Fiona," he would say, his voice full of hope, "if I can just go to the university, if I can just get a degree, everything will change. I can get a good job. I can take care of you. I can take care of us." Fiona would listen with her heart pounding, believing every single word. She loved the way he dreamed. She loved the way he believed in himself. And she wanted to be part of that dream. She imagined a future where Joseph wore clean suits and worked in an office, where they lived in a nice house, where they were finally happy and comfortable. But there was a problem. Joseph had no money for school. His uncle was poor and could barely feed himself. Joseph worked small jobs here and there, carrying bags at the market, washing cars, sweeping shops, but it was never enough. One night, as they sat together under the stars, Joseph broke down. "I'll never make it, Fiona," he said, his voice thick with frustration. "I'll never go to university. I'll be poor forever." Fiona's heart ached seeing him like this. She reached out and held his face in her hands. She could see the pain in his eyes, the hopelessness, and it crushed her. "Don't say that," she said firmly. "You will go to university, Joseph. I will help you. Joseph looked at her with wide eyes. How? You barely make enough to feed yourself and your grandmother. Fiona smiled, even though her heart was heavy. I'll work harder. I'll sell more plantains. I'll find a way. Joseph shook his head. No, Fiona. I can't let you do that. It's too much. But Fiona's mind was already made up. She loved this man. And she was going to do whatever it took to see him succeed. Nothing he said could change her mind. The next morning, Fiona woke up even earlier than usual. She doubled the number of plantains she carried. She walked longer distances. She skipped meals so she could save money. Her body hurt. Her feet bled. But she didn't stop. Every single coin she made, she gave to Joseph. For your school fees, she would say with a tired smile. Joseph would protest at first, but eventually, he accepted. He believed her love was real. He believed she was doing this because she wanted to. And maybe, deep down, he stopped seeing her as a partner, and started seeing her as a tool. He stopped asking how she was doing, and started only thinking about how much closer he was getting to his dream. If this story is already touching you, please like this video and subscribe. You don't want to miss what happens next. Months passed, and Fiona's life became harder and harder. She was no longer just selling plantains, she was selling everything she owned. Her beautiful wrappers, the ones her grandmother had given her, she sold them. Her only pair of good shoes, she sold them too. She wore the same torn dress every day because she had nothing else left. People in the village began to whisper. Look at that girl, they would say. She's killing herself for a man who will leave her one day. But Fiona didn't listen to them. She blocked out their voices and kept her eyes on Joseph's dream. But Fiona didn't listen. She kept working. She kept sacrificing. And finally, the day came. Joseph got accepted into the university. Fiona cried tears of joy when he told her. She hugged him so tight, her whole body shaking with happiness. You did it, Joseph, she whispered. You're going to be somebody. Joseph smiled, but his smile didn't reach his eyes. I couldn't have done it without you, Fiona, he said. But even as he said those words, something inside him was already changing. He was already beginning to see himself as better than her. At the university, Joseph's world opened up. He met new people. Educated people. Rich people. People who wore clean clothes and spoke big English. He started to feel ashamed of where he came from. He started to feel ashamed of Fiona. Whenever his friends asked about his girlfriend, he would change the subject. He stopped calling her as much. He stopped visiting her. And when she would travel for hours just to see him on campus, he would meet her outside the gate, far away from his friends, and tell her to go home quickly. He would barely spend time with her, always making excuses about studying or being busy. Fiona noticed the change, but she told herself it was just because he was busy. He's studying hard, she would tell her grandmother. He'll come back to me when he's done. But deep in her heart, a small voice whispered the truth she didn't want to hear, he's leaving you behind. And that voice was right. Every time she visited, Joseph seemed more distant, more cold, more like a stranger. But Fiona kept hoping, kept believing, kept loving him even when it was clear he was drifting away. It was during Joseph's final year at the university that he met her. Clara. She was everything Fiona was not. She was rich, polished, and confident. Her father owned 3 businesses in the city. She drove her own car. She wore designer clothes. And she smelled like money. Joseph first saw her at a campus event, standing near the dean's office, laughing with a group of influential students. She was beautiful in a way that made him feel small. She seemed to exist in a completely different world, a world Joseph desperately wanted to be part of. One day, Clara's car broke down near the campus gate. Joseph happened to be walking by. "Excuse me," Clara called out, her voice smooth like honey. "Do you know anything about cars?" Joseph didn't, but he lied. "A little," he said, walking over. He pretended to check under the hood, even though he had no idea what he was doing. Clara watched him with an amused smile. "You have no idea what you're doing, do you?" she said, laughing. Joseph blushed. "Not really," he admitted. Clara laughed again, and Joseph felt his heart skip. He felt embarrassed but also strangely drawn to her confidence and charm. "I like your honesty," Clara said. "What's your name?" "Joseph," he replied. She extended her hand. "I'm Clara." From that day, Clara started noticing Joseph around campus. She would wave at him, smile at him, invite him to sit with her and her friends at the cafeteria. Joseph felt like he was living in a dream. A girl like Clara, rich, educated, beautiful, was paying attention to him. And slowly, the memory of Fiona, the girl who had sold everything for him, began to fade. He began to convince himself that he deserved someone like Clara, someone who matched the new life he was building. Clara was smart. She didn't rush. She let Joseph fall for her slowly. She would ask him about his dreams, his plans, his future. She would tell him he was handsome, intelligent, destined for greatness. And Joseph, starving for validation, ate up every word. One evening, Clara invited him to her father's house for dinner. Joseph wore his best clothes, the ones Fiona had bought for him with her planting money, and walked into a world he had only dreamed of. Big gates, marble floors, maids, money. And at the center of it all was Clara, smiling at him like he was already hers. Joseph felt like he had finally arrived, like he finally belonged somewhere important. He forgot that those same clothes he wore were soaked with Fiona's sweat and tears. Joseph graduated with honors. Fiona was so proud. She had saved every coin she could to buy him a small gift, a wristwatch. It wasn't expensive, but it was all she had. She traveled to the city on graduation day, her heart full of hope. She imagined Joseph running to her, lifting her up, thanking her in front of everyone. She imagined him introducing her proudly as the woman who made it all possible. But when she arrived at the campus, she saw something that shattered her soul. Joseph was standing with Clara. And Clara's hand was wrapped around his arm. They were laughing, taking pictures, looking like a perfect couple. Fiona's legs froze. Her breath stopped. She wanted to run, but her body wouldn't move. Joseph saw her. Their eyes met. And for a moment, Fiona thought she saw guilt flash across his face. But then Clara kissed his cheek, and Joseph smiled. He turned away from Fiona like she was a stranger. Like she was nothing. Like the past 5 years had never happened. Fiona stood there for what felt like hours, clutching the small wrapped gift in her trembling hands. People walked past her, bumping into her, but she didn't move. Finally, she gathered the courage to approach him. "Joseph," she called softly. He turned, and his face was cold. "What are you doing here, Fiona?" he asked, his voice low and annoyed. Clara looked Fiona up and down, her nose wrinkling in disgust. "Is this the plantain seller you told me about?" Clara asked with a mocking smile. Joseph didn't even try to defend Fiona or soften the blow. Joseph didn't defend Fiona. He didn't tell Clara to stop. Instead, he said, "Fiona, you shouldn't have come here." Fiona's heart cracked. "But, Joseph, I came to celebrate with you. I brought you a gift." She held out the small package, her hands shaking. Joseph looked at it like it was trash. "I don't need your gifts anymore, Fiona," he said coldly. "I've moved on. You should too." And with that, he took Clara's hand and walked away, leaving Fiona standing there, broken, alone, and invisible. The gift fell from her hands onto the ground. No one even noticed. 2 years passed. Fiona thought she would never recover. But slowly, painfully, she began to rebuild her life. She stopped selling plantains and got a job as a cleaner at a small office. One day, the owner of the company, a kind older man named Mr. Williams, noticed how hardworking and honest she was. He paid for her to go to school. Fiona studied hard, and within 3 years, she became the company's accountant. She was no longer the broken girl Joseph had thrown away. She was strong. She was educated. She was valuable. She had learned to love herself and to see her own worth. Meanwhile, Joseph's life fell apart. Clara had only been with him because she thought he would be successful. But Joseph struggled to find a good job after graduation. His pride made him reject small opportunities, and soon, he had nothing. Clara left him for another man, a richer man. Joseph was heartbroken, but worse than that, he was alone. He remembered Fiona. He remembered her loyalty, her sacrifice, her love. And he realized, too late, that he had thrown away a diamond to chase after glass. He spent sleepless nights filled with regret, wishing he could turn back time. One day, Joseph saw Fiona. She was stepping out of a car, dressed beautifully, confident and glowing. She didn't see him. But he saw her. And his heart broke all over again. He ran after her. Fiona! Fiona, please wait. She stopped and turned. When she saw him, her face remained calm. Joseph, she said quietly. He fell to his knees right there in the street, just like she had done 2 years ago. I'm so sorry, Fiona. I was a fool. Please, please forgive me. Please take me back. His voice was desperate, broken, filled with genuine remorse. Fiona looked down at him, and for a moment, her heart ached. But then she remembered the pain. The humiliation. The nights she cried herself to sleep. She took a deep breath and said, Joseph, I forgave you a long time ago. Not because you deserved it, but because I deserved peace. She stepped back. But I will never go back to you. You taught me my worth by showing me how easily you could throw it away. And now, I found someone who sees my value. Goodbye, Joseph. She walked away, her head held high. And Joseph stayed on his knees, crying, finally understanding that some mistakes can never be undone. Karma had come full circle. And Fiona, the plantain seller, had become a queen. If this story moved you, subscribe for more powerful stories like this. Share this video with someone who needs this lesson today.